Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is all about HR tech stack secrets, and we are thrilled to be here today. Today's webinar is powered by HR Geckos, a co-pilot for HR operations that automates the HR help desk and streamlines HR processes. Here's our sponsor announcement. HR Geckos empowers HR leaders by automating tasks and enabling employee self-service so they can focus on strategy. Developed by HR professionals for HR professionals, HR Geckos helps you take the pulse of HR operations and prioritize what matters most: people. Interested in learning more about HR Geckos? Get in touch. Schedule a consult with our team at hrgeckos.com or simply scan this QR code. So without further ado, welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is all about HR tech stack secrets and designing a future-proof ecosystem. I'm your host, Jay Polaki, and as someone deeply embedded in the HR tech space, I'm thrilled to host today's discussion with three of my friends and luminaries in the HR tech space. I'm going to bring them on stage as we speak, and you're you're welcome to talk to all three of them during today's webinar, and leave your comments here in LinkedIn, or send us your comments directly via LinkedIn Messenger. Please do also, if you have any questions, please share them in the comments. We're happy to answer them as we discuss today's topic. My friend Albert is an HR tech industry consultant who's guided Fortune 500 companies through digital transformations for multiple years. Jim is a partnerships and sales expert, and he's brokered groundbreaking integrations between HR tech platforms. And Ardi is a product leader shaping the future of enterprise HR tools today. So in today's discussion, we'll dissect how to future-proof your HR tech stack amid AI, automation, and relentless innovation. Before we dive in, we do have a short survey for you. And the survey is called "How AI Ready is Your HR Department?" So we're going to share that shortly. The link to the survey, you can access the survey and use it during your exploration into AI, and how ready your AI ready your HR department is today. And I did a little poll on LinkedIn a while ago where, we were talking about how HR is, always is struggling with tedious administrative tasks, and, struggling with disorganized data management, and always, we are at risk with all of the compliance that comes into the fore when there are inefficient operations and processes in place. And the little poll that I ran, it's just a straw poll. The biggest thing that came up from the straw poll was that disjointed HR systems seem to be one of the biggest challenges, and next to that are scattered employee resources. And so when we're talking about the HR function today, and we're talking about skill-based talent strategies, what tools do you think will enable the shift so that we can better prioritize and better leverage the technology we have available to us, and that's coming out of the woodwork at us?
Great question, Jay. I think my personal opinion on this is, before you think about the technology, we need to take one step back to focus on what is the strategy and the problem that we are solving that is going to bring incremental value to the organization. So activity or initiative that is driven by human capital. It needs to be able to help the organization to, number one, increase sales, productivity, or engagement. So with that in mind, it's really important to define which is the use case that I'm enabling and how I'm defining the framework end to end to connect talent, technology, and data. And based on that framework, make the decision on, do I need to build or buy the skills transformation platforms? Or this is something that I could diversify and create something that could be tailored to the specific use case. I think those are the steps that you need to put in place before you think about the technology. Reason why is because the technology by itself won't work. It needs to have a data in place. You need to have the specific coordination and integration between multiple systems to make accurate predictions.
Well, Albert, you see all of these trends unfold daily. There are so many trends that are coming out through the different channels that we all get our newsfeed from, and we're seeing that some of these trends are truly reshaping the market, and some of them are just hype. Let's talk about a little bit of, about the trends that we're seeing and the trends that you're spotting. You've talked about AI-driven talent platforms as one of the 2025 hotspots in one of your recent posts. Which emerging tools, especially when it comes to skills intelligence, agentic AI, and decentralized systems, are most likely to disrupt traditional HR workflows, and why?
Great question. So here's a perspective, and Jim can agree or disagree, and you too, Jay. But what I see in the market is the fact that OpenAI, Claude, Google Gemini are building relationships with enterprise organizations. They are in a better position to be able to quickly jump into the skilling space. They have the expertise, they have the talent, and they have the technology. And they are already, to a certain extent, doing the knowledge management and having integration in multiple capability areas across the value chain. So what I see is most likely in the next 2 years, we're going to see those AI players coming into the HR technology space. And that's where the technology and alliance is going to be critical. If you're a founder or a CEO that is trying to scale your revenue growth, be able to have exposure to those key accounts, right? So with that said, then this is going to create some disruption in the market. Because think about this, if you're a small vendor that is providing scheduling or be able to take note-taking or doing candidate screening, now you can go directly to OpenAI, go through the vetting process, define the data source that they need to be trained, align on the governance, the way how we're going to provide analytics, and then OpenAI or any other AI tool will be able to do exactly what many HR technology vendors are doing. So that is going to be a massive shift when it comes to the workforce and the workplace in the context of AI and talent.
Well, I guess there's so many massive shifts ahead of us that are happening as we are speaking here today itself. How do you think HR leaders should balance investing in these cutting edge tools that you just mentioned? Some of them are Gen AI, some are not Gen AI, while ensuring alignment with the core organizational goals like DEI and hybrid work or in-office work or remote work. How should HR leaders balance investing in all of this cutting-edge technology?
I think there are, generally speaking, four steps to follow. Number one is to have a clear understanding of how ready your organization and your HR function is for AI. What's the level of maturity in terms of talent, technology, data, and strategy? You need to be able to understand clearly what are those capabilities and what are the gaps that you need to address that could be enabled by technology. After you have that clear picture, then you start thinking about, all right, which is the specific use case that I need to focus that will enable my business to be more competitive or drive more value? Then let's say it's talent mobility. So then you start thinking about, if our focus is talent mobility, which are the specific roles and the skills that I need to prioritize that will move the needle in my exponential growth, be able to launch a new services or a product. After you do that analysis, then you start thinking about, well, maybe we can start off with a pilot, test and bring that solution, learn from those experiences, and then scale. So there are 3 steps that you need to follow. However, there is one that is missing in many organizations, which is that every technology or enterprise transformation is a workforce transformation, meaning people are going to be the one doing the work, executing the strategy, be able to connecting with multiple teams in order to bring the strategy to implementation end to end. So you need to start thinking about change management. How you're going to align leaders, how you're going to be able to communicate properly, how you're going to reward and engage everybody to make sure that we are all aligned to the North Star.
Wonderful. Well, with all of this rapid technological evolution, one of the biggest pitfalls for organizations is that shiny new syndrome that we all fall prey to. And Jim and I have talked about this a lot. Albert, you and I have talked about this a lot. Jim, if you could chime in, when organizations face all of this rapid technological evolution and all of these new tools are right up in front, and they want all of them or they don't want none of them, how do you think they should go about looking at this, and how can they avoid some of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to this rapid tech evolution that's happening around us?
So there's so many emerging trends. You and Al were focusing on the importance and the emergence of skills in context of human capital technology. And I think that is probably the biggest trend that we're all collectively seeing. It's not new. It's been around for 40, 50 years. Skills are the basis for the whole competency framework that most of these top of the ecosystem solutions are predicated upon. And I agree with Al in one element. The top of the ecosystem is typically the source of record for the biggest investment companies make in HR. That's their HR platform, their source of truth regarding all things employees and readiness. And skills is not predictive. Skills gives you a readiness perspective. So think about this, and Al, I would love your feedback on this. There's generally understood that to hire someone ready now, meaning they meet all the skills and criteria, you need to be able to measure that, and B, it's going to cost you 600% more than if you identify the need for an individual with a certain skill profile and you invest in people that are already on your team who may be ready in 3 to 6 months. You get massive returns from that. So it's not only having a basic understanding of, am I ready for skills? You need a skills readiness assessment. There are a bunch of capability matrices available in not only from independent vendors, but from whoever your ecosystem invested partner is, whether that's Paycor, Paychex, whether it's some of the tier 1 players, SAP, Workday, et cetera. But you also need a system, not just a system of record. You need a system of validation for those skills. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole litany of things that go into a readiness assessment. And then what are your motives for doing it in the first place? Typically, the overarching objective is I want the right person in the right role at the right time, aligned to the right things in perpetuity, not just today, but the next 2 to 3 years from now. And Al, as your analysis says, most organizations aren't ready for the fact that many of the jobs that they're going to be posting 2 to 3 years from now don't even exist today. That's some of the huge impacts that things such as AI, a skills-based workforce are changing so rapidly. It's almost impossible to keep up. So clients and companies are having a difficult time knowing where to place their investments so that they are ready for these things.
Well, that's a great perspective, and that is a great segue for Artie. Artie, welcome. You were having some technical difficulties joining us today, but you're here. As an enterprise product leader, Artie, how are you designing tools to meet these future demands that Al and Jim have just alluded to, while ensuring that backward compatibility with all of the legacy systems that are in place stay intact?
Uh, Thank you, first of all, Jay, for having me, and apologies for initial tech difficulties. Having said that, I think as a product leader, the key to design a future-proof HR tech stack is to balance your innovation with your interoperability with both your current system and the legacy systems, as well as keeping in mind user experience and or employee experience as the forefront of any technology and data experience we are trying to enable. Right now, how to put this in action? Right, in most of the enterprise, I would say there will be a combination of a legacy systems as well as your modern enabled systems or AI enabled systems, as I would like to call it. Right, for you to ensure a backward compatible, as your question points to, right, making sure your product is always following the releases updated. That's the basic MVP for any product development I would encourage to have enterprises to follow, right? Similarly, when you are creating any data architecture, make sure you have a middleware in the place. Having middleware in the place will allow any data or people insights using both legacy systems as well as your modern systems. And lastly, I would say the goal for each and every enterprise should be eventually to sunset the legacy system. There is no way around it. It's just a stopgap. It's just that every enterprise is in a different journey point where they are in the HR tech curve. But eventually, down the line, 3 years, 5 years, then you should definitely plan to sunset any legacy system and move to the modern SaaS products.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. Thanks for saying it out loud. A lot of people are not saying it, and a lot of people are not aware that this is the way that many of the legacy systems are positioning themselves in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Even though they're not telling you you're their customers, they might not be saying it out loud, but that's how they're positioning themselves. If you look at any of the big HCM tools that are out there, they do have to kind of adopt and, you know, come into the future, or they might be overtaken by any of the smaller tech tools that are out there, the SaaS products that are out there today. So when it comes to the architecture and design, you spoke a little bit about this early on, Albert. So Jim and Artie, I'm posing this to both of you. You can take a stab at this, whoever wants to. How do you think we should be balancing innovation with this interoperability when developing new HR tech solutions for enterprises, as well as for smaller and medium businesses? Because smaller and medium businesses need to get with the program, if I may say so, since all of this is happening so fast. How do we balance all this innovation with the interoperability when it comes to developing new tech ecosystems to meld with the existing tech ecosystems? And I'm talking Google Drives and intranets for smaller companies that use them day in and day out.
I think that the first step is to have a clear picture on what exactly your team is doing, right? Are they focusing on strategic work? Are they focusing on their time on talent acquisition and everything in between? What exactly your team is doing, number one. That will give you a clear picture on what kind of work is done and what's the role of technology to support those activities. Number two, with that analysis, then you can make decisions on how you can incorporate technology to make decisions on, do I need to have a human dedicated to this activity, or this is something that could be automated or bring some AI-driven capability to make some predictions. Number three, after we define that, then we need to start thinking, all right, what is the data and technology infrastructure that I need to put in place to make sure that I put guardrails on the predictions that any tool is going to bring to my organization or to my clients. So have a well-structured data and technology infrastructure that is connected to whether it's skills or any other capability across the talent value chain. And number 4 is we need to start somewhere and define which are going to be the use cases that we want to spend our pennies to quickly show to leadership that the technology that we're bringing to market is bringing value.
Wonderful. Well, that's definitely something we have to keep in perspective. And thank you for laying them out in bullet points, as you always do, Albert. It's always helpful to have them, set that way. Jim, when it comes to any of the tools out there and companies that are adopting these tools, in your partnerships role and when you've advised companies on integrating new technology, how do you assess a company's data fitness before recommending a solution? What are the kind of bullet points that we should keep in mind?
Well, first off, what are you solving for, right? And this is aligned to what Al just laid out. I see so many companies will jump into development on a product or a solution without even doing a competitive analysis. First off, what does customer success look like? This is paramount. You have to reverse engineer the problem statement that a customer is or is not having. The hardest thing about selling your solution is, in most cases, they may have the problem, but they don't know it yet. So you not only have to illuminate the fact that you do have a problem, they have to agree that they have a problem, and then you have to be separational, that we're unique, we're doing this differently. Not only will we solve it, we'll do it in a superior way to all the other alternatives, which includes doing nothing, right? What's the cost of doing nothing? Why us? Why now? And then then can you start looking at what are the KPIs that you are solving or you're meeting because you're doing this with us. So what does success look like? What are the key metrics? And then you can start to look at the connectivity elements. Connectivity is only relevant until you put everything else in place first. And the first thing I do with organizations, and I would love everyone's collective opinion on this, is I say, get out of the implementation and integration business. Typically, if you're a software company, your core competency is not services. It's the product that you're building. It's also where your margins are greatest. You want to strive towards 80 to 90% margins. You don't achieve that on services ever. And most organizations, services are a loss leader. So the quicker that you start to somewhat outsource to expert platforms for integration, as well as third-party services for implementation, now you can really focus on differentiation of your own product, the development, focus all your pennies, to Al's point, on the areas that are most critical towards driving client outcomes.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great segue again for my next question, and I wanted to pose this to Artie. Artie, you've always focused your entire roadmap on users, and it's always been user centric and employee experience and employee feedback centric. So, what role does employee feedback play in shaping the roadmap for AI augmented tools? There's so many out there today, and how should organizations be looking at the employee feedback and taking it into perspective when it comes to adopting and shaping the roadmap for using AI across the business?
I think employee feedback is one of the most critical data points to develop your HR tech roadmap. And the reason I say that, I'll again go back to the foundation principles, which I strongly believe in, is people are the most important asset of your enterprise. And those people and your employees, they're expecting similar consumer grade experience for your HR tech stack as they have for consumer technology. When I say that, I'll pick a few examples, right? in today's world, all employees, whether they are your developers, engineers, they're using ChatGPT to write codes, right? It's just the hard reality. Similarly, when they interact with their HRIS systems, whether it's for their performance management or whether leveraging as a recruiter, I'm leveraging an ATS, I do expect an integrated AI experience, right? So if as HR leaders, we're not thinking about it, to incorporate AI in each and every business process, then we are going to be far behind it, right? And how employees play a critical role here. Whenever we launch a new product, right, or a new capability or a feature, we do reach out to our employees and ask that, hey, is that because AI is still, I would say, in the inception phase. So we, on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis, we ask for employee feedback. Hey, we launched this feature or we launched this AI experience for you. Is it helping you? How we can make it better? How we can iterate upon it? And based on the employee feedback, only we plan our all, whether it's quarterly releases or annual releases. That's how currently we are doing.
Wonderful. Well, when it comes to red flags, and Jim, I'm going to ask you this because even the most advanced tools fail without clean data. And McKinsey recently reported that 70% of digital transformations flounder due to poor data governance. And those are our integration realities today with any of these new tech tools, right? So what red flags do you see in an organization, and you know for sure that they aren't ready for this artificial intelligence era and all of this AI ML driven HR technology that is in place today? How do you guide them towards data hygiene?
So, the oldest term in the book, garbage in, garbage out. So you need to have an understanding of exactly what data is being shared, both in your AI objectives, and the increasing complexity with agentic AI now. For instance, not many organizations are aware that if you have agentic AI processes built in, you need to have an agentic integration strategy in order to have a cohesive AI across the processes that you're attempting to automate or optimize and de-risk. And that means you have to have a whole new layer of integration strategy towards your whole data readiness in order to support the agentic AI initiatives. And it may mean a complete new integration outcome because of the nature of how you're sharing data across multiple systems with the agentic AI processes. I'll rely on Artie and Al to go into more depth on that, but it's critical that you have agentic AI integration if you've got an agentic AI process.
And so true, right? Because agentic AI is this new tech that's being thrown at us today. I think of agents as chatbots. They're just more autonomous than a chatbot. And a chatbot always has the human in the loop. An agent can do work autonomously without a human in the loop. But there are so many different nuances to using agents in HR today versus chatbots, versus even a dashboard kind of ticketing system that we have at HR Geckos. In my conversations with clients, I always come across a lot of HR leaders who talk about the institutional knowledge that is in all of these legacy systems that they have, and also in smaller and medium businesses where their institutional knowledge is in a Google Drive. So from a liability standpoint, and Albert, how should HR leaders be thinking about storing, accessing, and making sure that this institutional knowledge remains a strategic asset today in this age of AI?
So just picking up from the previous thought from Jim, there are, I would say, 4 things to consider. Number one is that we need to be all aligned that it's not the technology coming to the organization and make predictions. There is some work that needs to be done at the data layer side of the house. So you need to start off, number one, with a data readiness, where your data is located, what's the quality of the data, how often do they review, manage, and monitor the data ingestion, who has access, what's the quality of that data, all the way to have a data ready for deployment. So what I mean by that is have a well-compelling data architecture in place. Number two is, if we have a data architecture in place, is what is going to be the governance of that data? And that data needs to be organized based on specific use cases or a specific capability that is enabled in the business. So what's going to be the governance, right? And now we're talking about personas. We're going to have data users. We're going to have data controllers and so on. How are we going to be able to manage the data, access the data, and make decisions on the data? Number three is data privacy. Right? Who is going to be, or who's going to be the team monitoring that the information that has been plugged into the data lake, let's say, it has or meeting the right standards for the organization and for the market, to avoid that our systems can make biased predictions. And the last one is, based on that, how are we going to be able to create some data semantic layer so that these systems can be able to be validated and be able to integrate different data sources so that they can make those predictions? That's a journey. Typically, it's a data strategy project that you need to drive that is connected to the roadmap and implementation. And it's a foundational capability that you need to put in place before you start thinking about agentic AI for human capital.
Well said. And you know, it's always not just about the tech, it's about trust, as many of us are seeing with the biggest lawsuit that's out there, a class action against one of the big HCMs out there. And many companies are facing scrutiny over AI bias in recruitment tools, in other tools that are being used in hiring, coaching, reviewing performance of employees. All of these tools are under scrutiny. And Ardi, I wanted to specifically ask you, how do you think we should be thinking about redesigning systems to prioritize ethical AI?
I think, first of all, I'll start with AI is evolving as I speak, right? So there are some foundational steps I can share what I have been doing with my experience. But again, I'll like to remind you and our audiences that it may change as we go and evolve more in the AI journey, right? So there are a few steps what we can take as technology and product leaders, how we can avoid any biases, right? Step number one, when we do any data model training, right? Make sure you have data of various demographics, right? That is very basic step number one, right? Step number two, I would say, the people who are training the models, they make sure you involve multi-stakeholders. What do I mean by multi-stakeholders? It should not only be your engineer sitting behind a computer. You need to talk to your HR department, have some power HR users help you to train it, right? And that's where a different topic, upskilling in HR is needed, right? Similarly, if you have DI officers, have some DI members also look at the training materials and have them involved in the active training of the models, right? Lastly, I would say have decision traceability. So every decision an AI model makes, keep a log of it, right? Keep that why that decision was made, right? What was the logic behind it, right? Have that, and which will also lead to doing frequent audits on those model training. So with those 3 to 4 steps I mentioned, I think we can try to avoid any biases when it comes to in AI. And I'll end with this, like make sure where we are currently, I'll still go back to my starting point, always have human in the loop. All decisions should be made by, eventually reviewed and approved by a human.
Is that something sustainable? You know, today we all are very involved as humans in every process. But when we are talking about agentic AI or any of the new digital transformational technologies out there for the HR function specifically, we are talking about productivity gains by using these technologies. So if we are going to continuously talk about keeping the human in the loop and having the human oversee all of this, and I'm totally for it, by the way, I'm not against it at all, but how is that sustainable as we go into this future where we are talking about AI even ordering your morning coffee or preparing it for you in the way you like it? A machine will do it for you, and you get up and you just drink it. How are we going to? How do you think this is sustainable?
Yeah, I think I like the push, Jay, there. It's not about sustainment, it's about the evolvement, right? I do agree with your point of view. Eventually, AI, these models will evolve at a place where the human in the loop, let's say if you're doing, if your enterprise looking into a mass hiring in a seasonal period, right? You don't want too many humans in the loop, or you want minimum human interaction or involvement in the type of the jobs and the roles. You are planning to hire for a particular season, right? So as these models evolve, right, as these models get trained better with, I would say, the larger volume of data, the human in the loop requirement will eventually, I do see it getting out of the window. I don't see, especially the use cases, I would say, like mass hiring or the pool hiring. That's where it will start. And maybe, who knows, like 5 years down the line, there are AI models who have no biases. But I was referring where we are currently in 2025, we do need human in loop.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we are still needed. That's good to know. Well, Jim, we do have an audience question, and I wanted to ask either Jim or Albert if they'd like to chime in on this, because it's a great question. Sajit Kumar asks, how do we humanize hiring in the AI adoption era? And why isn't HR talking about ethics enough?
I can give feedback just at a high level. And I think we can't forget about regulatory and compliance demands. In my opinion, for hiring, at least right now, and Artie, you were speaking to the needs of, I would say, frontline, which can be automated far more than a desktop worker. Because even the interview, you can have simultaneous interviews of 1,000 people within minutes. The number one characteristic for frontline worker, they accept 92% of the time the first offer they get. So speed in a competitive environment is most critical for frontline hiring. And you have to take that into consideration. So there's huge value for the optimization and automation that AI brings to the frontline capability. That is very different from a desktop worker like all of us, where you need actionable insights to accelerate the candidate process, but ultimately a human still has to be involved in hiring determination based upon a whole litany of things that aren't necessarily, skills, readiness, etc. There are cultural outlines, fit, form, etc., that really currently still need a human to be involved. And when you look at just the statutes that have already been raised in EMEA for the European standards, the biggest red flags and risks are predicated when hiring decisions are relegated to a bot versus a person. So today, at least in our standards, you still need someone to be making that final determination. They should be informed and have insights from the optimization that AI can bring. But a person needs to hit that trigger to, we hire this one over these 2 to 3 alternatives. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. I think if Sajid, you're still here, I hope that answered your question. Jim, vendors often tout seamless integration, but the reality, as you know, is a lot messier. What questions should buyers like HR leaders and CIOs and CTOs ask to avoid getting locked into rigid ecosystems?
So I'll point out the basics. And integration is not a partnership. And so many companies focus on the integration as the outcome, but that's just a modality of whatever process you're automating, right? So there are data elements, but there's also customer criteria. You typically recognize an opportunity for a partnership, Jay, when you see multiple integration requests from two point-to-point solutions. That's when you see that, hey, there may be an addressable market here, the sum of the parts greater than the whole, by partnering. And it's having those KPIs that are rooted in client outcome that should drive what the integration looks like. And then you have to, and you all can drive this in a superior fashion than I can. What should the workflow look like? What are the data elements and connectors? What already exists? Is there a standard connector that might be superior than taking development resources off of our product development and into integration specs? That's why, once again, I'll repeat myself. I think you should get out of the integration business. You make sure you have a world-class API and be easy to partner and connect to, versus taking key critical resources and creating additional IT debt. World-class APIs, and then focus on your own product development. Ideally, outsource it to a integration platform that gives you speed, lower costs, and repeatability.
Great point and great insights. That's I would second that and say that's the best way to go. And in addition to that, Jim, how do you think we should negotiate partnerships? Because we are all in this ecosystem where we all partner as vendors in this space, and a partnership brings a lot of advantages when it comes to future proofing all this emerging tech ecosystem that we have, especially things like blockchain technologies being thrown at us, cryptocurrencies being thrown at us. There's so many things that just keep these buzzwords or technological hype that keeps being thrown at us. But how do we negotiate partnerships to future-proof integrations against emerging tech?
So start with, why do we partner in the first place? There's really only two reasons. One is everyone's favorite, revenue, right? This is where the sum of the parts greater than the whole has to always be reverse engineered. Once again, why is the client better? Because we're doing something together with this partner. Why are they better off than not partnering? And what are the revenue drivers? Faster opportunities, bigger opportunities, more satisfied clients because we're partnering. That's one. The other side, and it's often overlooked, is scale. Scale is what you get when you have integration and implementation through third parties. And then elements, the change management.
Did we lose Jim, or is it me?
Oh, I think it's just some kind of technical glitch on Jim's side. Jim, we lost you on that last part of your sentence.
I said the other part, and Al mentioned this before, is the you never get a second chance for a first impression. So adding change management and advisory to the process in advance in the form of implementation, et cetera, gives generally superior outcomes than if you don't identify all those risks and have them mitigated as part of the change management program. And that's the first thing that hits the cutting room floor, because there's a cost to that. But arguably, there's a much higher cost from having churn of clients because we didn't hit the hard pieces during implementation, and that's the most expensive thing in SaaS software, is not having repeat signed clients, because very often you don't get the return on investment in order to be competitive until late year 2 or into year 3. So the criticality of re-signing for the next 3 years in a 3-year term is super important. And that means you have to get the implementation and customer success element right every time.
Wonderful. Well, let's crystallize today's insights, because you all have shared such really great, insights and secrets that we all should be aware of. So, Al, I'd like to ask you to start by giving us one actionable step that HR leaders can take tomorrow to start future-proofing their HR tech stack.
I think, I was going to say 4 steps, but I'm just going to focus on the first one. The first one is you need to build a baseline in terms of knowledge on AI and HR technology. So you need to spend a lot of time educating, what it is, how it works, and what's the value. And as you are educating, you need to also start thinking about what are the skills that the HR team will need to develop over time in order to be AI ready and fluent on those skills to be able to facilitate conversations on end-to-end AI strategy transformation.
Wonderful. Thank you for the one bullet. And Al, what's the most underrated skill HR teams need to cultivate for the AI era?
Build business cases. Like in every single conversation, sometimes we talk about the what exactly the team is doing, the activities, the strategy, implementation, all great work. However, at the end of the day, if you're going to ask for funding, your board or your CEO is going to start thinking about what is going to be the impact to my business. And the only way to do is building a business case, right? And be able to build a business case that is proven that in the next 2-3 years, here's, how we're going to be productive, or we're going to increase sales or something else. But in addition to that, bring insights, whether we want to build this insight or do we want to go and buy or partner, as Jim mentioned a couple of times.
Yeah, 100% on the business case. I couldn't agree more. And I'll add to that, even when you believe you've got buy-in, because you've got an active process to buy a certain type of HR technology, and then you select a solution for it, your advisory team is going to look at all the other requests for a finite pool of revenue that they can spend and evaluate. The second level of the sale is, how does this compare to the other asks in the business, and which spend is going to give us the greatest return? So even when you've done everything right and you've got a business case, how does that business case compare to all the other asks for spend in the company? Because your project might get pulled at the 11th hour if you don't have a business case which is superior on all those elements. So
Absolutely.
100% alignment.
Absolutely. That's so true. I mean, we see so many things die in the water, right? They're just dead in the water even before they see the light of day.
Okay, that's the dreaded no decision. Well, there was a decision. They spent the money elsewhere.
Correct. Well, Jim, what's one partnership trend on that note that will redefine HR tech ecosystems in 2025 and beyond?
Well, I think it's understanding what I'll use an ecosystem perspective, because that's probably the most influential element. The biggest spend that companies have is on their HR platform. That's their source of record. And there's a whole bunch of point solutions. Where do you fit in the product that you've developed? What is the greenfield space that is not addressed and not likely to be addressed by whatever platform or investments they've already made into their HR infrastructure? And being easy to work with or partner with, easy to connect with, have all of those things in advance. I don't know if it's a trend, but it's being far more ecosystem aware and able to differentiate across all the different alternatives that clients have, so that you stand out and have a why us, why now, in context of the ecosystem and who you're partnering with. Goes towards what I said before, at the risk of repeating myself. What is the better together message? It's hard enough, Jay, to put your own value proposition together. But when you're in an ecosystem or when you're partnering, what is the shared collaborative value proposition of why the client wins and how it's differentiated? Because you're doing something together or you're integrated. Why do they receive optimal outcomes because of that partnership or that collaboration?
Thank you. That's very insightful. And lastly, Ardi, what emerging technology are you most excited about, and how do you think it will impact HR in 3 years or 5 years or even 6 months?
I think if it's okay, I'll share too. Just in my personal opinion, I believe Gen AI for workforce will become just like your another HRIS system. Meaning, when I say that, every HR platform an employee interacts with will have some form of embedded AI assistant, which is specifically tailored to your culture, enterprise culture, as well as your employee profiles and or personas we have. So I see that happening rapidly, very fast. So that's one of the things I'm very excited about. I think the second area where I feel personally where I'm very excited, and it's a watch out item for me, is emotion AI and something called sentiment sensing tools, right? I have experimented with few of them. I do believe now finally as we are evolving in the AI, the human experience of work can be measured in some way or other. By what do I mean by that? Like, for example, Zoom has launched some your sentiment tracking, how you're feeling on a work day, right? How you're feeling in a meeting, maybe, right? So those aspects of your emotion AI and sentiment sensing is what I'm like. It's an watch out item. I would encourage all of us to keep an eye on that how it will evolve. And tied to that, I also believe like we have annual employee surveys. No longer, I think it will be always on surveys. I think many enterprises have already adopted having an annual survey employee versus moving to always on survey, which is tied to your same capturing your emotion and sentiments of employer on a given workday.
Artie, what do you call that? AI EQ?
Yeah. AI EQ, yeah.
Well, on that note, my EQ is very high after today's panel. Thank you so much to all of you. You've been such an incredible panel, and you've equipped our audience with so many strategies to navigate data chaos, build ethical AI systems, and forge partnerships that scale. So thank you again, Artie, Albert, and Jim for joining me today. And thank you everyone for joining us. And do remember, future proofing isn't just about predicting tomorrow. It's about building systems that evolve with it, as everyone has shared today. So thank you again for joining us, and be sure to chime in the comments or connect with any of us on LinkedIn here. We are always happy to chat about all things AI, HR, and HR technology. So take care and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.